There is a journey that every human being embarks upon, often without realizing it. It is a journey that begins the moment we take our first breath, a journey shaped by the world around us, by the expectations of others, by the silent agreements we make with society, and by the masks we learn to wear. For most of us, life starts as an outward quest, a search for belonging, for approval, for success, for love. We are taught from our earliest days to look outside ourselves for meaning. We are told, sometimes directly and sometimes through the subtle language of culture, that happiness is something to be achieved, that worth is something to be proven, that identity is something to be constructed from the outside in. As children, we are like blank canvases, open to the impressions of the world. We absorb the values, fears, and dreams of those around us. We learn what is acceptable and what is not, what is rewarded and what is punished. We learn to smile when we are praised, to hide our tears when we are scolded, to adapt ourselves to the expectations of parents, teachers, friends, and strangers. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, we begin to build a persona, a mask that allows us to navigate the world, to fit in, to be loved. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist and founder of analytical psychology, called this mask the persona. The persona is not inherently bad. It is in fact necessary. It is the social face we present to the world, the role we play in the grand theater of life. Without a persona, we would be unable to function in society. But the danger arises when we begin to mistake the mask for our true self, when we become so identified with the roles we play, student, employee, parent, friend, achiever, caretaker, that we forget who we are beneath the surface. Jung believed that the journey of life is, at its core, a journey toward the self. But for most of us, the first half of life is spent moving away from the self, not toward it. We are busy building, achieving, adapting, surviving. We chase after goals that are often not our own, driven by the invisible hand of collective expectations. We measure our worth by external standards, grades, promotions, relationships, possessions. We learn to silence the quiet voice within, the voice that asks, "Who am I really? What do I truly want? What is my purpose?" This outward journey is not without its rewards. There is satisfaction in achievement, comfort in belonging, pride in recognition. But there is also a cost, a subtle, growing sense of emptiness, a feeling that something essential has been left behind. We may find ourselves, in moments of quiet, wondering why we feel unfulfilled despite our successes. We may sense a restlessness, a longing for something we cannot name. We may notice that the roles we play no longer fit as comfortably as they once did, that the mask has become heavy, that the script we have been following no longer makes sense. Jung saw this as a natural and necessary stage of development. He wrote, "The first half of life is devoted to forming a healthy ego. The second half is going inward and letting go of it." The ego, the part of us that seeks to control, to achieve, to be seen, is essential in the early years. It helps us establish ourselves in the world, to build a foundation. But as we move through life, the call of the self grows stronger. The self, in Jungian terms, is the totality of the psyche, the center of our being, the source of our deepest wisdom and creativity. It is who we are when all the masks are stripped away. But the journey to the self is not an easy one. It requires courage, honesty, and a willingness to face the parts of ourselves we have long ignored or denied. It requires us to question the stories we've been told, to examine the beliefs we have inherited, to confront the fears that have shaped our choices. It asks us to step off the well-worn path of conformity and to venture into the unknown territory of our own soul. For many, this journey begins with a crisis, a loss, a disappointment, a failure, a moment of profound disillusionment. The structures that once gave our lives meaning begin to crumble. The goals that once motivated us lose their appeal. The relationships that once defined us no longer feel authentic. We may experience anxiety,
depression, or a sense of being lost. We may feel as if we are standing at a crossroads, unsure of which way to go. Jung called this the midlife crisis, but he saw it not as a problem to be solved, but as an invitation to transformation. He believed that the crisis is a sign that the soul is calling us home, that the self is seeking to be known. It is a wake-up call, a summons to begin the inward journey, to turn our attention from the outer world to the inner world. This is not a journey for the faint of heart. It requires us to let go of the familiar, to question our assumptions, to face our shadows. It asks us to become conscious of the unconscious, to bring light to the darkness within. It is a journey of descent, a descent into the depths of our own being, where we may encounter pain, fear, and grief, but also healing, wisdom, and joy. Jung believed that the unconscious is not just a repository of repressed memories and desires, but a source of guidance and creativity. He saw dreams, fantasies, and symbols as messages from the unconscious, invitations to explore the hidden dimensions of the self. He encouraged his patients to pay attention to their dreams, to keep journals, to engage in active imagination, to dialogue with the figures that appeared in their inner world. The journey to the self is not a solitary one. Along the way, we encounter guides, mentors, and companions, both in the outer world and in the inner world. We may find inspiration in books, art, music, nature. We may be challenged by relationships that mirror our own wounds and gifts. We may be guided by dreams, synchronicities, and moments of insight that seem to come from beyond ourselves. But ultimately, the journey is ours alone. No one else can walk it for us. No one else can tell us who we are or what we are meant to become. The path to the self is unique for each person, shaped by our individual history, temperament, and destiny. It is a path that unfolds step by step, often in ways we cannot predict or control.
As we begin to turn inward, we may discover parts of ourselves that we have long forgotten or rejected. We may remember dreams and desires that we set aside in order to fit in or to please others. We may encounter wounds that have never fully healed, fears that have never been faced, gifts that have never been claimed. We may feel both excitement and terror, hope and despair, as we begin to peel away the layers of the persona and to glimpse the self beneath. Jung wrote, "Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes." The journey to the self is an awakening, a process of becoming conscious, of seeing ourselves and our lives with new eyes. It is a journey from fragmentation to wholeness, from illusion to truth, from fear to love. But the journey is not linear. It is not a straight path from point A to point B. It is a spiral, a dance, a process of unfolding. There are times when we feel lost, when we stumble, when we fall back into old patterns. There are times when the mask feels safer than the truth, when the outer world demands our attention, when the call of the self is drowned out by the noise of daily life. But if we persist, if we continue to listen to the quiet voice within, if we honor the longing for something more, we will find our way. We will begin to see that the journey is not about becoming someone else, but about becoming who we truly are. We will discover that the self is not something to be achieved, but something to be remembered, reclaimed, and lived. The first step on this journey is awareness. Awareness of the masks we wear, the roles we play, the stories we tell ourselves. Awareness of the ways we have adapted to survive, the ways we have betrayed ourselves in order to belong. Awareness of the longing for authenticity, for meaning, for connection. The second step is acceptance. Acceptance of our humanity, our imperfections, our wounds. Acceptance of the fact that we are not who we thought we were, that we are more than the sum of our achievements and failures. Acceptance of the mystery at the heart of our being, the mystery that cannot be explained or controlled. The third step is action. Action that is guided by the self, not by the ego. Action that is rooted in truth, not in fear. Action that is aligned with our deepest values and desires. Action that is creative,
courageous, and compassionate. This is the journey that Jung invites us to take, the journey from the outer life to the forgotten self. It is a journey that requires patience, humility, and faith. It is a journey that is both deeply personal and universally human. It is a journey that leads, ultimately, to freedom, the freedom to be who we are, to live our own truth, to create a life that is meaningful and whole. As you reflect on your own life, consider the masks you have worn, the roles that you have played, the dreams that you have set aside. Consider the moments when you have felt lost, empty, or unfulfilled. Consider the longing that stirs within you, the quiet voice that calls you home.
This is the beginning of the journey to the self, the journey that Carl Jung believed is the true purpose of life. But the journey does not end here. In the next part, we will explore the shadow, the hidden side of the self, the parts of ourselves we fear, deny, or reject. We will see how the shadow shapes our lives and how facing it can lead to healing, transformation, and wholeness. For now, let this be your invitation to look within, to listen to the voice of the self, to begin the journey home. There is a moment in every journey inward when we come face to face with something unexpected, something unsettling, something we have spent much of our lives trying to avoid. This is the encounter with the shadow, the hidden side of ourselves, the collection of traits, desires, memories, and impulses that we have denied, repressed, or simply refused to acknowledge. For Carl Jung, the shadow is not just a psychological concept. It is a living, breathing part of the psyche, a force that shapes our lives in ways both subtle and profound. To understand the shadow, we must first understand how it is formed. From our earliest days, we are taught what is acceptable and what is not. We learn, often unconsciously, to split our experience into light and dark, good and bad, worthy and unworthy. The parts of ourselves that are praised and rewarded become part of our conscious identity, our persona. The parts that are criticized, shamed, or feared are pushed into the shadows, hidden from view, not only from others, but from ourselves. This process is not unique to any one person. It is a universal aspect of human development. Every culture, every family, every individual has its own set of values, its own definition of what is acceptable. As children, we are acutely sensitive to the reactions of those around us. We learn to adapt, to fit in, to survive. We learn to hide our anger, our sadness, our vulnerability, our wildness. We learn to suppress our creativity, our sexuality, our intuition, our power. We learn to become who we are expected to be, and in the process, we lose touch with who we truly are. Jung wrote, "Everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is." The shadow is not evil. It is simply the part of us that has been denied the light of consciousness. It contains not only our negative traits, anger, jealousy, greed, fear, but also our unlived potential, our hidden gifts, our deepest passions. The shadow is the source of much of our suffering, but it is also the wellspring of our creativity, vitality, and wholeness. The shadow does not disappear simply because we ignore it. In fact, the more we deny it, the more power it gains. It seeps into our thoughts, our behaviors, our relationships. It shows up in our projections, when we see in others the very qualities we refuse to see in ourselves. It appears in our judgments, our irritations, our obsessions. It emerges in our dreams, our slips of the tongue, our sudden outbursts. The shadow is always with us, whether we acknowledge it or not. For many, the first encounter with the shadow is frightening. We are confronted with aspects of ourselves that we have been taught to fear or despise. We may feel shame, guilt, or even terror. We may want to turn away, to retreat into the safety of our familiar persona. But Jung believed that the only way to true healing and growth is through the shadow, not around it. He wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of life, but by making the darkness conscious."
To meet the shadow is to embark on a journey of radical honesty. It is to look at ourselves without flinching, to acknowledge the parts we have tried to hide. It is to recognize that we are not as perfect as we pretend to be, that we are capable of both great good and great harm. It is to accept our humanity in all its complexity, to embrace the full spectrum of our experience. This is not an easy task. The shadow is cunning. It resists exposure. It hides behind rationalizations, justifications, and defenses. It convinces us that we are better, kinder, more virtuous than we really are. It whispers that if we were to reveal our true selves, we would be rejected, abandoned, unloved. It tells us that our darkness is too much to bear, too dangerous to face. But the truth is, the shadow is not our enemy. It is our teacher, our guide, our ally. It holds the key to our freedom, our creativity, our authenticity. When we have the courage to face the shadow, to bring it into the light of awareness, we begin to reclaim the parts of ourselves that we have lost. We begin to heal the wounds that have kept us fragmented and afraid. We begin to discover a deeper, more honest way of being in the world. The process of meeting the shadow can take many forms. For some, it begins with a crisis, a relationship that falls apart, a job that is lost, a dream that is shattered. For others, it is a gradual awakening, a growing sense that something is missing, that life is not as fulfilling as it could be. For many, the shadow appears in dreams, strange, disturbing images that refuse to be ignored. For others, it shows up in the body, illness, fatigue, anxiety, depression. Jung encouraged his patients to pay attention to these signs, to listen to the messages of the unconscious. He believed that the shadow is not just a personal phenomenon, but a collective one. Each of us carries not only our own shadow, but the shadow of our family, our culture, our society. The wounds of the past, the traumas of our ancestors, the unspoken taboos of our community, all of these are woven into the fabric of our being. To meet the shadow is to become conscious of these hidden influences, to question the stories we have inherited, to challenge the patterns that have shaped our lives. It is to recognize that we are not as free as we think we are, that much of what we do is driven by unconscious forces. It is to take responsibility for our own healing, to stop blaming others for our pain, to begin the work of integration. Integration is the key word here. The goal is not to eliminate the shadow, but to integrate it, to bring it into conscious awareness, to accept it as part of ourselves. This does not mean acting out our darkest impulses, but rather understanding them, learning from them, transforming them. It means recognizing that our anger can be a source of strength, that our fear can be a guide, that our vulnerability can be a doorway to connection. Jung believed that the shadow is the gateway to the self. He wrote, "The shadow is a tight passage, a narrow door whose painful constriction no one is spared, who goes down to the deep well." To pass through this door is to enter the depths of our own being, to confront the monsters that lurk in the darkness, to discover the treasures that lie hidden there.
The journey through the shadow is not a one-time event. It is an ongoing process. The shadow is not something we conquer once and for all, but something we learn to live with, to dance with, to befriend. It is a lifelong companion, a reminder of our humanity, a source of humility and compassion. As we begin to integrate the shadow, we may notice changes in ourselves and in our lives. We may become less judgmental, less reactive, less defensive. We may find ourselves more open, more creative, more alive. We may discover a new sense of freedom, a freedom that comes from no longer having to hide, to pretend, to be someone we are not. But the journey is not without its challenges. The shadow can be seductive. It can lure us into self-destruction, addiction, or despair. It can overwhelm us with guilt, shame, or rage. It can make us feel isolated, misunderstood, alone. This is why it is so important to seek support, to find guides, mentors, therapists, or friends who can help us navigate the darkness. We are not meant to do this work alone. Jung often spoke of the importance of community, of finding others who are also on the path of self-discovery. He believed that the work of individuation, the process of becoming who we truly are, is not just a personal journey, but a collective one. As we heal ourselves, we heal the world. As we integrate our own shadow, we become more capable of compassion, understanding, and love. The shadow is not just a psychological concept, it is a spiritual reality. It is the place where we encounter the mystery of our own being, the place where we meet the divine and the demonic, the place where we are stripped of our illusions and confronted with the truth. It is the crucible in which the ego is transformed, the place where the gold of the self is forged. Jung was deeply influenced by alchemy, the ancient art of transformation. He saw the work of meeting the shadow as a kind of psychological alchemy, a process of turning lead into gold, darkness into light, suffering into wisdom. He believed that the shadow is not something to be feared or avoided, but something to be embraced, honored, and integrated. This is not a path for everyone. Many people spend their entire lives avoiding the shadow, clinging to the safety of the persona, refusing to look within. But for those who are willing to take the risk, the rewards are great. To meet the shadow is to become whole, to reclaim the lost parts of ourselves, to discover a depth and richness of being that cannot be found anywhere else.
The shadow is not just personal, it is also collective. We see the shadow at work in the world around us, in prejudice, violence, injustice, and hatred. We see it in the ways we scapegoat others, in the ways we project our own darkness onto those who are different from us. Jung believed that the only hope for humanity is for individuals to do the work of integrating their own shadow, to become conscious of the darkness within, to take responsibility for their own healing. This is not easy work. It requires courage, humility, and a willingness to be uncomfortable. It requires us to question our assumptions, to challenge our beliefs, to confront our fears. It requires us to be honest with ourselves, to admit our mistakes, to forgive ourselves and others. It requires us to let go of the need to be perfect, to embrace our humanity in all its messiness and complexity. But the rewards are profound. As we integrate the shadow, we become more authentic, more compassionate, more alive. We discover a new sense of freedom, a freedom that comes from no longer having to hide, to pretend, to be someone we are not. We become more capable of love, of creativity, of joy. We become more fully ourselves. Jung wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." This is the work of the shadow, to accept ourselves, not just the parts we like, but the parts we fear, the parts we hate, the parts we have tried to deny. It is to embrace our wholeness, to become who we truly are. The journey through the shadow is not a straight line. It is a spiral, a dance, a process of unfolding. There are times when we feel lost, when we stumble, when we fall back into old patterns. There are times when the darkness feels overwhelming, when the pain feels too great to bear. But if we persist, if we continue to face the shadow with courage and compassion, we will find our way. We will discover that the shadow is not just a source of pain, but a source of power. It is the place where our creativity, our passion, our vitality reside. It is the place where we find the energy to live, to love, to create. It is the place where we discover the gold that lies hidden in the darkness. As you reflect on your own life, consider the parts of yourself that you have hidden, denied, or rejected. Consider the ways in which the shadow has shaped your choices, your relationships, your sense of self. Consider the possibility that the very things you fear most about yourself are also the source of your greatest gifts. This is the work of a lifetime, the work of becoming whole, of integrating the shadow, of discovering the self. It is a journey that requires courage, honesty, and a willingness to face the darkness within. But it is also a journey that leads to freedom, to creativity, to joy.
There comes a time in every honest journey inward when the landscape begins to change. After the initial shock of meeting the shadow, after the courage it takes to look at what we have hidden, denied, or rejected, something new begins to stir within us. It is subtle at first, like a distant melody or a faint light on the horizon. But as we continue, as we persist in the work of self-examination and integration, this presence grows stronger. It is the call of the self, the deeper center of our being, inviting us to move beyond the limitations of the ego and the persona, to step into a life of greater authenticity, meaning, and wholeness. Carl Jung called this process individuation. It is, in his words, the process by which a person becomes the one, indivisible, unique being that he or she is meant to be. Individuation is not about becoming perfect, nor is it about becoming someone else. It is about becoming who you truly are, embracing all the parts of yourself, both light and dark, conscious and unconscious, known and unknown. It is the journey from fragmentation to unity, from living on the surface to living from the depths. But what is the self, and how does it differ from the ego? In Jungian psychology, the ego is the center of our conscious identity. It is the I that navigates the world, makes decisions, and maintains a sense of continuity. The ego is necessary. Without it, we would be lost in the chaos of experience. But the ego is not the whole story. It is only a small island in the vast sea of the psyche. The self, in contrast, is the totality of the psyche. It is the organizing principle that holds together all the different parts of who we are. The self is both the center and the circumference, the source and the goal. It is the archetype of wholeness, the image of the divine within us. The self is not something we create, it is something we discover. It is always there, waiting to be recognized, waiting to be lived. The journey of individuation is the journey toward the self. It is a process of differentiation, of distinguishing ourselves from the collective, from the expectations of others, from the roles we have been assigned. It is also a process of integration, of bringing together the disparate parts of our personality, of healing the splits and divisions within us. It is a journey that requires both courage and humility, both discipline and surrender. For many, the call of the self comes as a whisper, a longing, a sense that there is more to life than what we have known. It may come in the form of dreams, synchronicities, or moments of deep intuition. It may arise in times of crisis, when the old ways of being no longer work, when the structures we have built begin to crumble. It may come as a sense of restlessness, a hunger for meaning, a desire to live more fully and authentically. Jung believed that the self communicates with us through symbols, images, and experiences that point beyond the ordinary. Dreams are one of the primary ways the self makes itself known. In dreams, we encounter figures, landscapes, and events that are both familiar and strange, both personal and universal. These dream images are not random. They are messages from the unconscious, invitations to explore the deeper layers of our psyche. For example, a dream of a house with many rooms may symbolize the different aspects of the self, some known, some hidden. A dream of a journey,
a quest, or a descent into the underworld may reflect the process of individuation itself. Encounters with animals, wise old men or women, children, or mythical creatures may represent archetypal energies that are seeking expression in our lives. Yu encouraged his patients to pay attention to their dreams, to record them, to reflect on their meaning, to engage in active imagination, a process of dialoguing with the figures and images that arise from the unconscious. He believed that by working with dreams and symbols, we can gain insight into the deeper currents of our lives and begin to align ourselves with the movement of the self. But the call of the self is not always easy to follow. It often requires us to let go of old identities, to question our assumptions, to face our fears. It may ask us to leave behind relationships, careers, or ways of living that no longer serve our growth. It may lead us into periods of confusion, uncertainty, or solitude. The path of individuation is not a straight line. It is a spiral, a labyrinth, a journey through both light and shadow. One of the central challenges of individuation is the integration of opposites. Jung believed that the psyche is made up of pairs of opposites, conscious and unconscious, masculine and feminine, thinking and feeling, intuition and sensation, order and chaos. Much of our suffering comes from identifying with one pole and rejecting the other. We may see ourselves as rational and deny our emotions, or as nurturing and deny our assertiveness. We may strive for order and fear chaos, or seek security and avoid risk. Individuation requires us to embrace both sides of these polarities, to find a dynamic balance, to allow the tension of opposites to create something new. Jung called this the transcendent function, the capacity of the psyche to hold opposites and to give birth to a third, creative solution. This is not a matter of compromise or dilution, but of transformation. When we can hold the tension between opposites, something new emerges, a deeper, more integrated self. The process of individuation is deeply personal, but it is also universal. Every culture, every mythology, every spiritual tradition contains stories of the hero's journey, the quest for the self, the descent into the underworld, the return with the treasure. These stories are not just entertainment, they are maps of the soul, guides for the journey of transformation. In the myth of the hero, the protagonist is called away from the ordinary world, faces trials and challenges, descends into darkness, confronts monsters, and ultimately returns with a gift for the community. This is the story of individuation, the journey from the known to the unknown, from the surface to the depths, from the ego to the self. But unlike the hero of myth, our journey is not always dramatic or outwardly visible. Much of the work of individuation takes place in the quiet moments of reflection, in the choices we make each day, in the willingness to listen to the voice within. It is a journey that requires patience, persistence, and faith.
Jung believed that the process of individuation is the true purpose of life. He wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." This is not a selfish pursuit. It is a service to the world. As we become more whole, more authentic, more aligned with the self, we become more capable of love, creativity, and compassion. We become less reactive, less defensive, less driven by unconscious fears and desires. We become more present, more alive, more able to contribute our unique gifts to the world. But individuation is not a solitary journey. Along the way, we encounter guides, mentors, and companions, both in the outer world and in the inner world. We may find support in therapy, in spiritual practice, in creative expression, in community. We may be challenged by relationships that mirror our own wounds and gifts. We may be inspired by dreams, synchronicities, and moments of grace. One of the most important aspects of individuation is the integration of the shadow, as discussed in the previous part. The shadow is not just a collection of negative traits. It is also the repository of our unlived potential, our hidden gifts, our deepest passions. As we integrate the shadow, we reclaim the energy that has been locked away, and we become more whole. Another key aspect of individuation is the integration of the anima and animus, the inner feminine and inner masculine. Jung believed that every man carries within him an inner feminine, anima, and every woman carries an inner masculine, animus. These inner figures shape our relationships, our creativity, our sense of self. To become whole, we must recognize, honor, and integrate these inner energies. For a man, this may mean embracing qualities such as intuition, receptivity, and emotional depth. For a woman, it may mean embracing qualities such as assertiveness, logic, and independence. The goal is not to become androgynous, but to become more fully human, to embody the full range of our potential. The process of individuation is not without its challenges. There are times when the path is unclear, when we feel lost or alone, when the old ways no longer work and the new ways have not yet emerged. There are times when we are tempted to turn back, to retreat into the safety of the familiar. But if we persist, if we trust the process, if we listen to the call of the self, we will find our way. Jung often used the image of the mandala, a circular, symmetrical pattern found in art, nature, and religion, as a symbol of the self. The mandala represents wholeness, balance, and integration. It is a reminder that the journey of individuation is not about perfection, but about embracing the fullness of who we are. As we move toward the self, we may notice changes in ourselves and in our lives. We may become more authentic, more creative, more compassionate. We may find ourselves drawn to new interests, new relationships, new ways of being. We may experience a sense of peace, a sense of purpose, a sense of belonging.
But the journey is never finished. Individuation is a lifelong process, a continual unfolding, a dance between the known and the unknown. There are always new layers to discover, new challenges to face, new gifts to claim. The self is both the goal and the guide, the destination and the path. In the end, the journey of individuation is a journey of love, a love that embraces all that we are, a love that heals, transforms, and liberates. It is a journey that leads us home, not to the person we thought we should be, but to the person we truly are. As you reflect on your own journey, consider the ways in which the self has called to you. Consider the dreams, the longings, the moments of insight that have pointed you toward a deeper truth. Consider the challenges, the losses, the crises that have forced you to let go of old identities and to step into the unknown. This is the call of the self, the invitation to become whole, to live from the depths, to bring your unique light into the world. It is a journey that requires courage, honesty, and faith. But it is also a journey that offers the greatest reward, the privilege of a lifetime, the joy of becoming who you truly are.
There is a quiet revolution that takes place within us as we move through the journey of individuation. After the long and often difficult work of meeting the shadow, after listening to the call of the self and beginning to integrate the many parts of our psyche, we arrive at a new threshold. This is the threshold of integration, a place where the fragments of our being begin to come together, where the opposites within us find their balance, and where we are finally able to live with a sense of authenticity, freedom, and inner peace. Carl Jung believed that the second half of life holds a unique potential for transformation. While the first half is often spent building our persona, establishing our place in the world, and striving for external success, the second half invites us to turn inward, to seek meaning, and to embrace the fullness of who we are.
It is a time when the ego, having served its purpose, can finally bow to the deeper wisdom of the self. It is a time when we are called to live not for others, not for approval, not for achievement, but from the center of our own being. But what does it mean to live authentically? What does it mean to be integrated, to be whole? And how do we navigate the challenges and opportunities of this new stage of life? To live authentically is to live in alignment with our true nature. It is to act, speak, and choose from a place of inner truth rather than from fear, habit, or the expectations of others. It is to honor our values, our desires, our boundaries. It is to express our creativity, our love, our wisdom in ways that are unique to us. Authenticity is not about perfection. It is about honesty. It is about being real, being vulnerable, being present. Integration is the process by which we bring together the many parts of ourselves, our light and our shadow, our masculine and feminine, our conscious and unconscious, our wounds and our gifts. It is the work of making peace with our past, forgiving ourselves and others, and embracing the totality of our experience. Integration does not mean that we are free from conflict or pain. It means that we are able to hold these experiences with compassion and understanding, without being ruled by them. Jung often spoke of the importance of embracing our contradictions. He wrote, "Wholeness is not achieved by cutting off a portion of one's being, but by integration of the contraries. To be whole is to be able to say yes to all that we are, to our joy and our sorrow, our strength and our weakness, our certainty and our doubt. It is to recognize that every part of us has a place, a purpose, a gift to offer. As we move into the second half of life, we may find that our priorities begin to shift. The things that once seemed so important, status, possessions, approval, may lose their hold on us. We may feel a longing for simplicity, for depth, for connection. We may become more interested in questions of meaning, purpose, and legacy. We may feel called to give back, to mentor others, to create something of lasting value.
As we age, we may also face the reality of our own mortality. This can be a source of fear, but it can also be a source of liberation. When we accept the impermanence of life, we are freed to live more fully in the present, to cherish what we have, to let go of what we cannot control. We are able to focus on what truly matters, to invest our time and energy in what is meaningful. Jung wrote, "The greatest and most important problems of life are all fundamentally insolvable. They can never be solved, but only outgrown." Integration is not about finding all the answers or fixing all our problems. It is about growing beyond them, about expanding our capacity to hold the mystery and complexity of life. In the second half of life, we may find ourselves drawn to creative expression, to art, music, writing, gardening, or any activity that allows us to give form to our inner experience. Creativity is not just a hobby, it is a way of knowing, a way of healing, a way of connecting with the self. Through creativity, we can explore our dreams, our longings, our fears, and our hopes. We can give voice to what is deepest within us and share it with the world. We may also feel called to service, to use our gifts, our wisdom, our experience to help others. Service is not about self-sacrifice or martyrdom. It is about sharing what we have received, about contributing to the well-being of others, about leaving a legacy of love and meaning. As we integrate the many parts of ourselves, we become more resilient, more adaptable, more able to navigate the challenges of life. We are less likely to be thrown off course by external events, less likely to be controlled by fear or desire. We are more able to respond to life with equanimity, with grace, with humor. But integration is not a final destination. It is an ongoing process. There will always be new challenges, new losses, new opportunities for growth. There will always be parts of ourselves that need attention, healing, and love.
The journey of individuation and integration is a lifelong adventure, a continual unfolding, a dance between the known and the unknown. Jung often used the image of the circle or the mandala as a symbol of wholeness. The mandala is a pattern that appears in art, in nature, in dreams, and in spiritual traditions around the world. It represents the integration of opposites, the harmony of the parts, the unity of the whole. To create or contemplate a mandala is to participate in the process of integration, to align ourselves with the deeper order of the psyche and the cosmos. As we move into the later stages of life, we may find ourselves becoming more reflective, more contemplative, more interested in questions of meaning and purpose. We may feel a desire to make sense of our lives, to understand the patterns and themes that have shaped us, to find coherence in the midst of complexity. This is the work of wisdom, the work of making meaning, of finding our place in the larger story of humanity and the universe. It is the work of accepting our limitations, our failures, our mortality, and finding beauty and value in the midst of imperfection. Jung believed that the ultimate goal of individuation and integration is the realization of the self, the experience of wholeness, of unity, of being at home in our own skin. This is not a static state, but a dynamic process, a continual movement toward greater depth, greater authenticity, greater love. To live authentically in the second half of life is to live with courage, with compassion, with creativity. It is to honor our journey, to embrace our story, to share our gifts. It is to be a light in the world, not by being perfect, but by being real. As you reflect on your own journey, consider the ways in which you have grown, the challenges you have faced, the lessons you have learned. Consider the parts of yourself that you have integrated, the gifts you have discovered, the wisdom you have gained. Consider the ways in which you can live more authentically, more creatively, more compassionately. This is the invitation of the second half of life, to live from the center of your being, to embrace the fullness of who you are, to share your light with the world. It is a journey that requires courage, honesty, and faith. But it is also a journey that offers the greatest reward, the freedom to be yourself, the joy of living with meaning, the peace of being whole. As we come to the end of this exploration, remember that the journey of individuation and integration is not a solitary one. We are all connected, all part of the larger web of life. As we heal ourselves, we heal the world. As we become more whole, we create space for others to do the same. Carl Jung wrote, "The shoe that fits one person pinches another. There is no recipe for living that suits all cases. Your journey is your own, unique and unrepeatable. Trust your path, honor your process, and know that you are exactly where you need to be. May you walk your path with courage, with compassion, with creativity. May you embrace your shadow, listen to the call of the self, and live with authenticity and freedom. May you find meaning, purpose, and joy in the second half of life, and may you share your light with the world." This is the gift of integration, the promise of individuation, the wisdom of the self. This is the journey home.